Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Ashley Vandeventi. I am the Director of Meetings and Education at the American Orthotic and Prosthetic Association. We have Chad Duncan here with us, Director of O&P Programs at Drexel, and Kimberly Hansen, Director of Reimbursement at Ottobock, and they're going to be leading us through the moderator training today. So I will turn it over to them. Thank you all for joining.
All right. Thank you very much, Ashley. And I think this is our third year. Kimberly and I have been presenting this, so we look forward to providing you moderating training today. There are a few changes from the past, but we're open to questions throughout. Put them in the chat, and also Ashley's here to assist us. So again, as Ashley stated, Director at Drexel University, used to be Salus University, but now Drexel. And we have Kimberly from Ottobock. I'm Director of Reimbursement. I don't know if Kimberly, you want to say anything, or you just want to get right into it?
Get right into it.
All right. So the exciting part of being moderators, first of all, is thank y'all for all volunteering and accepting to be a moderator. It is key to the success of the conference, AOPA conference, or any conference, but really the success of the AOPA conference. There's a lot going behind the scenes, but the moderators really help make this happen. So with this being stated, is really creating the environment for learning and engagement. That's really what moderating's about. And with that, we will discuss our agenda. So basics, we're going to do a quick introduction. We've already done that, but really want to discuss the role of the moderator, preparation, facilitation, follow-up, some of the technological or technology pieces. And then we'll have the tips and Q&A. Feel free, for those who might have moderated before, if we give an example and you say, hey, I got another great example, feel free to provide a little bit for us. We do want to be cognizant of everybody's time while moving forward and giving you some good information. So with that, I don't know if, well, Kimberly, you want to take this one, or I go with this one?
I can go for it. So we want to prepare you by providing tools and support you need as a moderator for the conference. Your role is super important in timekeeping and the quality of the presentations and the Q&A. So I'm super excited about kind of giving you some tips and tricks on how to manage the engagement and the timing and create a real pleasant environment for everyone. Obviously, it's Chad and I doing it. And I don't know if we have any first-time moderators on this, but I just want you to know we're there for you. We'll be on site for you. We're going to get you through this, so don't be nervous. It's actually kind of fun. I think it's probably my 14th or 15th year being part of the OPA assembly and moderating or business planning. So.
Yeah, and I agree with Kimberly. It's definitely a fun part, and really getting to see the presenters and seeing things that you haven't done, but taking part with AOPA, making this a really good success. So going into sort of the nitty gritty, and Kimberly and I will be alternating throughout this slide. So feel free, if you do have a question, pop it up. But really going in, what are the roles of the moderator? And it's key because we wear many hats while we're moderating. It's just not sitting in the room and making sure it's ready. The first one is really, we're the champion for the audience. And what do you really mean by that? It's really making sure, if we're doing a panel, the panel's talking about the issues and the audience cares about that, so you're really supporting that. Assessing how the audience is reacting and keeping the conversation on track and meaningful for them. So especially with panels, sometimes there's going to be crosstalk between different presenters, and making sure it stays on, you're actually managing them to make sure it stays on topic, and watching the audience at the same time. If people's eyes are curling or if it's going off subject, your job is to sort of redirect that piece. It doesn't happen often. Most panels work very well together, but occasionally there's some diverse views, and that could occur. But just to be aware of that. So you are there for the audience and for the speakers. timekeeper. Do you mean I just do this instead of going back and forth for loud
Yeah, just keep going through this.
Yeah, and Kimberly will just add to it. So if you get tired of hearing my voice, I apologize. But with
I'll
that,
take that.
yeah. So the timekeepers, making sure that the speakers in the panel follow the schedule, and make sure they don't get stuck on a specific topic. Sometimes this is hard to follow, but really it's making sure that they're on time. The room is set, the microphones are working, they're there on time, and you'll have a clock in the room. They'll have a clock in the room they can see, but a lot of times they lose track of that. And your goal is to make sure that they're on process, especially when you have a series of speakers. It's key to keep everybody on time because you don't want them taken away from the next individual, because then it's a waterfall effect. And the last person might not have much time to speak, and then it messes with the Q&A. So again, it's our job to really make sure they stay on time. You're not being mean, but it's being courteous of the next speaker coming in or speaker that's going to be stepping up on the site. I don't know if you have anything else to say with that.
Yeah, I can maybe take the next couple too. Every time I moderate, there's a challenge with time. So just be prepared. It's one of the number one things. You're keeping on time. You're reminding them. You're going to meet with your speakers in advance, a few minutes in advance, and tell them what your signals are. Tell them that, I tap my watch. I go through, I have it very visual. They're very visual, even though the clock is right in front of them, in front of the podium. I've spoken before, and I don't look at it. I'm looking at the audience. I'm not looking down. So I always have some visuals, as well as, kind of the facilitator role of it is, you're getting there, you're facilitating with your presenters. So you're making sure they understand sort of the 1, 2, 3 that you want them to know. Like, you're going to introduce them, they're going to start the presentation, and you're going to be out the timekeeper. And then you are probably picked on this on the track that you're facilitating because you are familiar with some of the content, or it's in, like, my business track moderators are very kind of versed in that information. So I always have, when I'm moderating, think about questions that I might ask if their Q&A goes crickets. As a moderator, you'll have the mic back. Is there any questions? How can I'd be happy to take questions. We want you to speak into the microphone so the questions are recorded for the virtual learning. And then if nobody has it, because you have the mic at that point, you can think about a question, or, hey, can you talk about this in addition to? So it's not always necessary because there's typically a lot of Q&A, but facilitating that. And that's sort of part of the facilitator instigator side. You're instigating sort of the engagement, as well as, when you're introducing as well and, getting questions, you kind of want to pump it up. There's a lot of investment that goes in every presentation from everybody in the room, time away from work and all of us, moderating, and all of the volunteers. So I really like to be the cheerleader in that room to ensure that everybody has a good experience.
Yeah, and I like the word cheerleader. Is sometimes, especially if it's after lunch or early, we'll talk about this a little bit later on Saturday morning, you have to have that energy for the crowd, for the audience, to get them going. And also it sometimes takes the nerves off the panelist or the speaker who's about to go if you get them going. The instigator part of our role is really you're probing beneath the surface of asking some of those tough questions of the panel or of the speaker to build dialogue. As Kimberly stated, is we typically are moderating areas that we have content expertise in, and you're going to know who they are. So researching what they're doing, asking for questions, especially when Kimberly's talking about the crickets piece, is to already have some questions prepared, but we'll discuss that in a few minutes too. And definitely the cheerleader. I love that part, the cheerleader, because it does set the tone for the room. So as Kimberly had mentioned earlier and stuff about, how does our role change, and going from there is, there's a panel type presentations, and then we have these free paper presentations, and they have different feels to them as moderators. And some of us will be doing only one type or doing both of them at the same time. And again, it's all about the management, and creating those interactions. Really, sometimes the crowds, they don't want to ask questions. So if you already have a prepped question from the panelist, you can start that question off. And even for a free paper, you can really start that Q&A up. And then that can prime the audience to feel more comfortable to ask a question. I know personally, I don't like to ask questions when I'm in the audience, but as a moderator, I feel obligated. So I always have those questions ready just to get them going. Timing is key with that, and being flexible and fluid within the situations, because things can go left or right. The other pieces, you might have a list of questions, but make sure that as the moderator, you're moderating, you're not asking all those questions of the panelists if it's crickets, because other people might need to ask questions. So experience matters. New presenters may be less able to judge how long their presentation is going. So this is really prepping them at the beginning. As a moderator, you're going to sort of get the nerves down and then prep them as they're going in. Being in the forefront is important. So when I say be in the forefront, depending on the presenters, either I'll sit in the very front row off to the side so they know that I'm there for support for new presenters, or if there's presenters that I'm very familiar with that are very proficient and stay on time, I tend to stay in the back so I can watch the audience and see what's going on. So knowing where your presenters are and how experienced they are is important, especially for the new presenters there. And just to FYI, we did this year give a presenter's presentation to sort of prep them and get them ready for that. And they'll be coming to site with another training, just like y'all at a conference.
Yeah, and I would recommend going by and looking at your room before you have to walk in and moderate. There's a comfort level of, oh, I'm good. Like I went in my room last year and I knew I was going to stand in the back just by the size of the stage and where it was located. I knew I was going to stand in the back. So when I introduced myself to my presenters, if I didn't know them, I already knew my logistics. So I recommend doing that.
Yeah. And again, earlier I started off, timing does matter when presenters present. That after lunch presentation can be brutal for a lot of times, depending on what day it is. The first day is usually excitement. The second day, people are toning down. The last day where people are ready to sort of leave, it can be tough. So, or that Saturday morning when people unfortunately might have too good of a time meeting up with their old friends, is adding that energy. And that's where we are as cheerleaders and keeping people professional and focused.
And I would say if you're a new moderator, don't take it personal when people come in late or people leave early. The first year I did, I'm like, oh, that's weird. I thought they'd come to listen to it. Everybody's there for a different reason. And if it's distracting to your presenter that the door is open and closing, I sometimes even manage the door, because if the door is loud when it closes, so you got to feel your room out a little bit. And most of us are doing 2 or 3 back to back, so you get to master it by the last one. But that was something that I learned kind of after being there the first time, like, whoa, I got to manage the door. It's too loud and it's distracting to the presenter, watching people get up and leave or people coming in late. So.
And on top of that, talking about getting to know the room, especially when you're getting the crowd ready and this really goes with the preparation. It's not on this particular slide, is let them know to make sure their phones are off. It's amazing we still have to do that, but it really is good. Even the last conference, somebody started a conversation on the phone. It's very distracting. So you just gently walk up, quietly tell them, can you take that out in the hallway? But managing the door is a key one, especially in those hot ones that everybody's trying to pack in the room, and you have to make sure it doesn't get too overwhelming. So the moderator, you do have some homework, right? And Kimberly has hit on this a little bit. So you have this preparation to getting ready for the conference, and make sure you review the topics. AOPA actually has sent out the moderator bios, the sheets to present on the topics, but really it's understanding who's presenting and, anticipate how hot is this topic. There are some that are really hot, some are basic topics. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to the AOPA committee, Ashley, see Kimberly and I, because we're like familiar with, like, these could be some hot topics if you're not too familiar with those particular topics. The other thing is, as we've mentioned multiple times, is be ready to engage. One is, you are representing AOPA as the moderator, and so you have to be able to engage in a professional manner. With that is, especially when nobody has questions and there's time left, it's always good to prime the pump with that question. Always reach out to my presenters ahead of time, or I try to at least, and say, hey, are there a couple of questions that you'd like me to ask if no questions are being asked after your presentation? And they'll say, sure. So they're softball questions, they tend to be. And as I said earlier, it tends to prime the crowd audience, and then all of a sudden the questions start happening. Plan your open and close. Really plan an intro that sparks excitement. I'm not the most exciting person, but you want to come in with a loud voice, hey, great to see everyone today. We have some awesome presenters, and, just engage instead of being flatline and sort of monotone individual. And then it says prepare memorable closing. Stay away from jokes unless you're really good at it. But the idea is not about you, it's about the presenters. Thank your presenters on their topic. Maybe do a quick little overview. And then a lot of times is, if there's an event happening, you let them know that there's other events occurring right after this presentation, and, sort of lead them back to the vendors and to other things that are exciting happening. Prepare your presenters. Again, this is knowing the room, reaching out to them. I always like my presenters to come early, especially if it's the first presentation, to make sure everything's working, to get everything moving forward. So, you let them know that you're there to support them. And Kimberly, I don't know if you want to talk about, because I know you're pretty good dealing with your track of making sure all your presenters are taken care of.
Yeah, one thing that Ashley, I think Ashley is from AOPA. Ashley, are we asking presenters to upload their presentations before their time slot?
We are asking to upload their slides and any handouts by the 30th. We will try to have them available in the room, but we highly recommend that everybody just take a jump drive with their presentation on it. If there's any last minute edits or things like that, or you forget to upload it, it's just good to have a backup for those reasons.
Okay, great. And that kind of comes down to your plan B. Something always happens, and it's not the technical fault. It's the, can we get the slides up? Did they change their slides? Most presenters change their slides before they present, and they're working on it in the hotel room the night before or that morning. I am extremely guilty of that. So always, find out, who would you give a jump drive to if they need it? If the presenter says, oh, I made some changes, I think they were really important, something that happened the last couple of weeks, I don't balk an eye at it. I just talk to the tech guy, and the tech people are in the room. They're fantastic. There is an AOPA staff member that is always present that help facilitate any anything going on if you need something. So plan B is typically you have help with a plan B. Like we said with the crickets and the Q&A, and if the topic, you can tell everybody's sleepy, like Chad said, send them back to the exhibit hall, kind of know the schedule, know what's going on next. But certainly plan B, I am working on a plan B for one of mine right now. So I know that it's going to happen, and just roll with it and rely on your AOPA staff member that's in the room with you to help you through it.
Yeah. And definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm around and I love like assisting people throughout this process. So when you get to the conference, we've already talked about the preparation, but again, you're prepping again. Being over prepared is awesome for being a moderator. You know, it's handling the fine details. You know, make sure you practice your intros and just again be in preparation. As Kimberly talked about the AV guys and gals, is as a moderator, before my presenters get there, and depending on the rooms I'm in, I always find the AV tech guys, get to know their name, say, hey, I have a presenter coming in. Is there anything I need to know? Can they reach out just to get them knowing who I am? So when the presenters are coming in, if there is any issues, I can call them by first name and we have this relationship. Again, it's that relationship and communication that keeps everybody sort of calm, especially for the new presenters, when things might seem to be going off a little bit or somebody's getting a little long-winded. If you know how to work that room and know the people to speak to, it's important. Another one is weird, but discuss getting on stage, you know, especially for new presenters. You know, if they're getting a little nervous, you can tell they're a little sweaty and stuff, you know, get them up on stage, have them like look around, see what's the best position, make sure their PowerPoint's working, and then, you know, have them come off the stage and speak to them, give them a pep talk. So you got this. And, you know, we have some questions already prepped. This is going to go well. I'm going to set the stage for you, for the audience, to get them back up on stage and present it. It's a lot. You're managing those anxiety pieces, especially for first time presenters.
And the other thing on that, Chad, is some people want to stand behind the podium with a microphone. Some people want the lavalier mic on. You're working on that ahead of time. The AV tech is putting the lavalier on, or they decide, like, I like to stand behind the podium because I just feel like I'm not going to fall off the stage. Yeah. So that's where the stage presence comes in, is where are they most comfortable to execute their best presentation.
And definitely, and so I don't know, some of the rooms they have not a teleprompter, but a computer screen down on the floor too, so you can see your presentation. Just make sure that like vanity doesn't kick in. I took my glasses off, so if I take my glasses off, I can't see really close up, but I can see far away. But have all the resources there. Make sure your presenters have those resources too. It's like, can you see this clearly? Do you need anything? And really fine tuning those details, even a cup of water to make sure if they get dry throat. Another key is we have a lot of diverse speakers or presenters, and make sure you know how to pronounce their names. That is really key. You don't want to embarrass yourself, and it doesn't look good for AOPA too if you don't know how to pronounce your speaker's name. You know, self-deprecating humor, as I always say, is always mess up people's names because I'm from the South and I put extra syllables and stuff and vowels. But just speaking with them and let them know, hey, what do you go by? And I'll use those words. So just a heads up on that.
Great.
Follow up. So there's 3 phases, right? You prep, you're on site, and now it's this follow up. And this is typically when everything is ending, they're ending their presentation. And you know, while they're presenting, you do want to make notes of what's happening in the hall. What's going on with the space, where there's enough chairs, where there's squeaky doors, did the presenter go rogue? There's all these little things that can happen, and we take little notes, or you know, there's different things that can improve that. So that constructive criticism a lot of times, is it technology? What are the things that could make this better to provide back to the AOPA staff? You know, one time it was one room was really, really hot and the next room was really, really cold. Those are things we just take notes of, because if we go back to these venues, we want to know, what are some of the issues that we could put forth for IOPA to make it a better experience. And talking about taking notes is giving feedback to the presenters, always, especially first-time presenters, usually not the people who've done it all in all for long years. But first-time presenters, I always like to give them that like pep talk afterwards, like, that was a great presentation, did a wonderful job, different things to just pump them up, so they'll come back and submit another presentation in the future years. Also, pat yourself on the back. It's sort of a weird way to say it. Moderating can be tiring, because especially if you go back to back on things. And then if you have a rowdy room, it could be really, really a different experience for you. So, as you get through and they end on time, pat yourself on the back and say, hey, did a nice job. So we call them the tech nerds. Really the AV guys and gals they're going to be the key source to go to, as Kimberly talked about, is when you go into that room, know who's running that room and make sure that everything is working. There's always some gremlin about, and they're typically good at problem solving these issues. So it's either the timer, different things, videos. Always ask the presenter, do you have videos? Are you using Wi-Fi for something? Because I have them practice that while they're before they even start. Because if it doesn't work, they can just skip that slide instead of getting the frozen on stage because the video is not working. So the tech guys are really good at problem solving that ahead of time, and working with you if they come out on time. So, and then making sure if they did bring a presentation, it can be uploaded. The tech people do like people to come in 30 minutes prior, but some of our presentations are back to back to back. So if they can just come ahead of time, I know some people do come the day ahead of time and try to check out, see where their room's at. If you're around, you can meet with the tech people. But we do a lot of stuff as moderators, so we might not necessarily be in that room for those individuals. But knowing your room, and the tech people tend to be focused on that one particular room. They're not going to be moving around. There's one main person, and then there's people dedicated. I don't know if you have anything else, Kimberly, on the tech people, but they are vital to our success.
Yeah, the only thing that I've done with the tech folks, aside from the presentations and videos and all that, I'm glad you hit on that, is they're probably in there with us from like 9 to noon, and they don't know how AOPA, they do have a schedule, but they may not know this speaker's going 45 minutes, the next speaker is going to go 45 minutes. And so I kind of make sure that the time clocks are set correctly for that reason. But it's get to know them because they're friendly and they're there. And a lot of times they're the same folks that we've used year over year. So they know our program pretty well.
Yeah, and that is key. Time clocks do tend to mess up a little bit. So and that's key for Kimberly, like 30 minutes versus 45 minutes, because some count down and some count up. So you have to be aware of that too. Because if it's counting down and from 45 minutes and the person, wait a second, I thought I had a 30-minute, but I have 45 minutes, and they go and go. That's happened to me before. So just be aware of that.
I think okay, you can take this one because I'm going to talk about the crowd.
Oh yeah, the crowd. Yeah, you're good at it. All right, perfect. Some tips, the next slide is really about managing the audience, but you really want to add energy. It can be tough depending on what day it is, and excitement to those presentations, especially if a presentation goes south. You're there to support them even when it goes south, and that's where at the end, and there's plenty of time, is to have your remarks prepared. Have something to say that helps be supportive to keep the crowd going. The other thing is pump up the rest of I mentioned this already at the end, you're going to pump up the rest of the conference from the first day to the last day. Either that is talking about the exhibit hall or an event going on or the next presenter that's coming behind this individual, or it could be even next year's conference, and thinking about that, that does all those pieces of excitement that we want to put in there. You know,
Yeah, and this is normally my closing. I don't typically I don't typically recap their presentation. We always make sure when they register to be a presenter that they have nuggets that they're giving customers that they can take and apply to practical life. I don't go through those typically when I moderate personally. I'm normally talking about, hey, did you hear there's a NASCAR event tonight? Have you been to the exhibit hall? There's a really cool product preview going on. And we'll try to get those in the room so you know what's going on that's relevant to your time slot that you're moderating. Because I think it's effective because there's a lot of money spent in that exhibit hall of people, bringing their product to showcase. And I'd like to drive folks back to that, whether it be the exhibitor sponsored happy hour or that type of event. I think we also talked about the unexpected. I think when you are talking to your presenter, things have been working well up until now, just be prepared. There might be something that occurs, we'll just get through it. And it's more about giving them the confidence that we'll get through it together. But if something actually does happen, I normally get on the mic and will say, hold tight, everyone. Just be a couple minutes. Power went out, mic went out, batteries went out, whatever it might be. And then lastly, act the part. We are doing a very, it's a professional show. It's a business or clinical or pedorthic. We're a professional organization, so we request business attire. Typically in the back, I have water, maybe, soda. I don't eat in the room, and because it's not the lunchroom or the snack time. So I don't typically eat in the room. And I don't recommend it either, because you never know when you're going to have to get back on that mic and you wouldn't want a mouthful of food.
Definitely. So here's the fun part of our job, the audience.
All right.
I'm going to let Kimberly take it, and then I'll just fill in.
You can wrap up. This happens to me every year. So this is where you want to be prepared. I moderate the business track, and normally business track we have a lot of trends going on right now. And Medicare presents with us, VA presents with us, and we get my cogs. And they start exploring into personal stories that are not going to be solved. They happened to me last year. 2 individuals back to back did it. The first individual, I had to tap on the shoulder because he has the microphone. And I said, wrap it up. And I'm like, this is not the time or the place for this. And I've moderated a lot, and I'm experienced in it. My first year, I probably wouldn't have said that. I would have said, excuse me, can you get to your question? So do what you feel is necessary. The next person that got up on the mic, I almost wanted to have the tech guy turn the mic off. So when you're talking about getting to know your tech guy, you might give him the cross your neck sign, like, oh God, where is this going? But I also said, thank you for your question. They wanted the microphone back. I would not give the microphone back. I said, we're trying to get to everybody so several questions could get answered. So you're going to have to manage if you have a mic hog. Not everybody that moderates that I know gets this problem. It just seems to come with the track that I always do the first day. It's always got a lot heavy stuff in it. Yeah, and a lot of times they want to hold on to the mic. I'll ask for the mic back, or I'll hold the mic while they ask the question. So you're going to have to figure out your room and your technique. I do like holding the mic while they ask the question, because I know I'm in control of the mic. So just be aware. Sometimes Q&As do go a little left field, or become personal, or become, you don't want any PHI that's being exposed. You don't want any, with all of the antitrust regulations that are out there. We don't want to talk about pricing. We don't want to talk about, particular things like that, competitive nature. So I like to be in control of the mic. I don't know if this is as common under the clinical track, but it certainly has been my under the business track. I've had experience kind of year over year.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes I even say, please ask questions only. There's somebody, there's usually, I know the usual suspects. I'll right when we start the Q&A, I say, this is question and answer time. Please ask questions. No pontifications about any stories. Please make the questions relevant. I don't have to do that often, but there's a few people that I've learned that I'll have to say that. And then I've been in situations, and probably Kimberly's more than me, is, inappropriate statements that are being made. Statements aren't questions. And I tend to say, thank you very much. This is an inappropriate topic right now. Please have a question. If you don't have a question, please sit down. Those are things, we're not being rude. We're managing the experience for the speakers and the rest of the audience, because nobody wants to be in that environment where it's a really good presentation. And it could be a controversial topic, and we want to keep it on the positive or constructive. It's okay to disagree, but there's a way to disagree at conferences. And then, talking about the silent mic, that usually happens more often than not. And a lot of my presentations in the clinical side is, if you have your questions prepared, just prime the audience and, have them, you ask the question, and or if you have a prep question, that maybe ask the audience a question that can get them going, and your presenters will probably provide you some of those questions.
And I would say on that one, it's okay to have a silent mic if you have 1 or 2 minutes left in the time slot. I often will say, do we have any questions? Anybody have any questions? I probably wouldn't facilitate a question with 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes left. I would probably then just go straight to my closing. And so, great content. If you have any additional questions, the presenter can be reached because they normally give contact information, and be sure that you hit the exhibit hall for lunch at, noon. Yeah. So it's not always a bad thing, but certainly just be prepared. If there isn't a Q&A, check your time clock. 10 minutes or 7 minutes to go, you probably want to do a question. You'd probably want to stroke it, see if anybody else has anything that they'd like to ask, but be aware of your timing when you do that, because you could then go over.
Yeah, definitely. Or you say, we just have time for one question with that. And I like Kimberly talked about the exhibit hall, is we're always trying to lead people back to the exhibit hall, because that's really important for the conference and the people who've spent money and time to really show off what they have. So we're always leading them back to that. I know Ashley had wanted to state something about Wi-Fi. So
yeah, just a couple of things. There are kind of those events worked into your scripts. Granted, they're very generic, so like Kimberly said, kind of make them your own. I know Chad had mentioned a little bit about the split sessions. There are some tracks / work groups that have sessions that's more than one session and one time slot. So I would just encourage in those cases that you encourage the individuals in that second time slot to also come early before the first presentation starts, so they're not trying to set up their AV when we have to jump right into their session. We do have access codes for Wi-Fi for speakers in the room if it's needed. That's another good reason to just have them show up 30 minutes early. That way we can make sure we have your Wi-Fi code and that they're ready to go with that.
Another piece, I know we're in Q&A, if anybody has Q&A, is know where your rooms are. Scope everything out way ahead of time, and even know where different rooms are, because occasionally there has to be an adjustment. Somebody doesn't show up, or we need to change rooms because of a tech issue, or the room just can't be used. The other piece is, if you know where that space is, that room is, when you get there, you're not being rushed, you're not lost and showing up right when the presentation is. You really do need to be there ahead of time, so you have composure because your composure will allow those, especially those first time presenters, to be calm. If you're calm and say, hey, I'm here for you, we're going to get through this. The other piece is if you're following behind another moderator and the presentation's going long in the other room, is you're not being rude, as you can go up to the other moderator if they're not stepping in and say, hey, I really need to get my presenters in so they can take charge. It doesn't happen too often, but it can happen because you are managing the next meeting. So if a moderator is too shy because let's say it's Jerry Starks talking and you don't want to interrupt them, tough. It doesn't matter who it is. You can interrupt them because each presenter should be respected for their time and presentation.
Yeah, and I think one last thing, we're doing on-site moderator training. So we're hoping that all of our moderators, at the end of the day, I think there's like 18 of us doing it. I made that number up, somewhere around that. It's not 50. We're going to do on-site moderator training to help get you over the hump if you're having, if you need it, want to get together, meet us face to face. I think it's great if you wanted to walk through a room and sort of see how it goes, or if like if I'm moderating or Chad's moderating on the first morning and you want to come in my session so you can see how I kind of handled the morning, feel free. I last year I had 2 people join me on my first couple sessions just to feel comfortable because they were doing it the subsequent days. And so yeah, that is all. And when we're on site, I always offer that, but it's definitely something that just come in and join us, whether it be Chad or I. I'm happy to. And because I'm doing all day Thursday and half of Friday for the business track. So I'm moderating half the business track for the weekend. And Terry Tuffle, she's at the end. She's on Sunday, otherwise she's great to watch too.
One thing I'd like to add on the location as well, you'll see this W in front of the number for the moderator first time presenter training on Thursday. The Charlotte Convention Center is a little unique in that they have a light rail running through the middle of it. So there's either when you come in on the street level, you're going to be in Concourse A where registration is. Exhibits will be 1 floor down, and 1 floor up will be all of our meeting space. However, the east and the west side are split by the light rail. So you will have to go downstairs to get up to downstairs to the street level to get up to the east side from the west side, or vice versa. You'll notice if it's west side or east side simply by that location. West side's all W, east side's all E. All the concurrent education sessions will be on the west side, and all of the manufacturers workshops and general sessions will be on the east side. And that will be in the program book as well, but seeing it is a little bit of a unique setup. I just wanted to flag that for the moderators. Feel free to share that as well with your presenters. It's just good to show up in advance, like Kimberly had said, and check out the room for that reason alone.
And definitely unique to that Thursday at 2 o'clock. We're also having the presenters, offering the presenters to be there. So we'll have the presenters and the moderators together in the same room, which is the first time. So when you reach out to your presenters, invite them to come to that session, because I think it's really nice to get to know and create that conversation, comfortability, especially first-time presenters. Say, are you a first-time presenter? They are. Really lead them to this meeting on September 12th at 2, and that will create nice conversation. Again, that communication is key that Kimberly and I've been talking about, and it really makes the conference go really, really nice and smoothly. Kimberly.
Yeah, and I don't see anything in the chat, Chad. So anybody have any questions? Go ahead and just unmute and ask away.
I see a first-time presenter, Terry, I think. So yeah, if nobody has any questions, feel free to, I'll be glad to, you can email me, reach out to me. I know Ashley's has been a rock star in keeping us on task. And when you come to the conference in Charlotte, it's going to be an exciting time. And feel free, like Kimberly said, seek us out. We're here to make sure that you're successful. If you have any questions about how to handle situations, all the moderators who've been doing it they're open to making this experience a positive experience. And 9 out of 10 times everything runs smoothly, but that, you know, one time is are called the tech gremlin or the heckler in the crowd, and we'll have to step in and shine.
Yeah, and I put my cell phone number in there, not note it down. If I can't help you, I know somebody that can, that's on site typically. Especially if you're not familiar with sort of the layout. One other thing Chad mentioned, if your room is hot, Devin's always my AOPA staff member. I look to Devin and go, can you figure out the temperature in the room? I know if I'm hot, most everybody else is hot because I typically run a little cool. You know, leverage your AOPA staff member that's in the room supporting you as well, because they're really familiar with kind of the infrastructure around the buildings and who to talk to and the kind of the conference staff. So I always reach out to them for that. Well, thank you everyone for participating. I hope you found this helpful. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday, the 12th. I forgot the show starts a day earlier, so I'm moderating all day Friday, half a Saturday. So little Freudian slip there, Ashley.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are a day shift pattern this year, so concurrent sessions will be Friday through Sunday. And thank you, Chad and Kimberly, for putting together this excellent presentation, and thank you all for serving in the moderator role. We couldn't do it without you. I am recording it, and I can send that out after. Chad or Kimberly, if you have any last remarks.
Not at all. I look forward to seeing everybody. Get your
Yep.
flights and hotels booked if you haven't already.
Yeah. Ditto.
It's filling up.
Thank
Sounds good.
you.
Take care.
Thanks.